Today we have talked about in detail about general anatomy of bone and general anatomy of muscles. Now I will give you a quick review in a very fast way. First of all, we have talked about bone development. There are two things you must not forget for bone development. First of all is intramembranous ossification, and second one is endochondral ossification. In intramembranous ossification, it happens mostly embryonologically, and the cells involved are osteoblasts and connective tissue, and the bones which are made by the intramembranous ossification are vault of the skull, facial bones and clavicle. And a bone which is made up of intramembranous plus endochondral ossification, that is mandible. This is an exception. And in intramembranous ossification, there is a concept called molding. What happens actually what happens while delivery, if the female pelvic outlet inlet, pelvic brim is smaller and the fetal head is larger, and in order to have that normal smooth normal delivery, vaginal delivery, these these skull bones, the vault of the skull of the baby that are made up of intramembranous ossification have a characteristic called molding. What happens? These bones, like parietal bones, they are joined together by a suture over here, and this is a frontal bone also having a suture over here, sagittal suture, coronal suture, lambdoid suture. We will discuss about that. But what happens to make the delivery easier, these bones, parietal bones, will interdigitate to each other, and that frontal bone also comes in below these bones, right? So it will make, after with this interdigitating, okay, I can show like this. This is the skull of the baby, normal. What happens? The pelvic rim is smaller and the fetal head is larger. So in order to make a smooth vaginal delivery, these bones will interdigitate, overlap with each other like this, and frontal bone will also come like this. It will make the circumference of the head smaller, so it will be easier for the baby to go outside of the female's body, and after almost 6 minutes, that bones will come again to their normal position. That process is called molding. That is only happens in our baby's skull, not in your skull. So there is a clinical feature also. Adults have more head trauma, more head fracture than small kids. Why? Because these bones are, due to, as they are intramembranously ossified, have capability of flexibility. They will bend downward and they will come to the normal position with the passage of time. But in an adult, as the bones have been ossified, they cannot digitate, but they cannot even flex. So there will be fracture to the adults more oftenly as compared to the kids. Then we have discussed about endochondral ossification, in which the main players are chondrocytes. Hyaline cartilage is destroyed into the bone, and it happens in the long bones basically, and this is a slow process. Maybe it leads to the 18 to 20 years of life. Endochondral ossification. Then okay, now we will talk about ossification. There are two centers of ossification: primary ossification center and secondary ossification center. Primary ossification center, it is present in the diaphysis of the long bone, and secondary ossification center present at the epiphysis of the long bones. Primary ossification centers are before birth, and secondary ossification centers are after birth. Primary ossification centers, before birth, present in the diaphysis. Exceptions are navicular and cuneiform bones, that are the taller bones present in our foot. And secondary ossification that happens in after birth, present at the epiphysis. Exceptions are distal femur and proximal tibia. Okay, then we have talked about parts of the long bones. First of all, we have talked about diaphysis, the central part, which is also called shaft of the bone. This is the most strongest and longest part of the long bone, and this is the primary center of ossification before birth, and the syphilis attacks at the diaphysis of the long bone. Then secondly, we have talked about metaphysis. This is the most vascular part of the long bone. It is having maximum growth capability or capacity, and you can see over here, this is the diaphysis, this is metaphysis. The metaphysis in children are having clinically important, that in children there is hematogenous osteomyelitis happens at the metaphyseal positions of the long bones. And metaphyses are the most commonly traumatic and avascular necrosis happens at the metaphyses of the long bones. Are you with me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now then we will have discussed about epiphyseal or growth plate, that are also a cartilaginous plate. It also helps in it is also maximum growth capability in length. And after puberty, this epiphyseal plate becomes epiphyseal line, and this is the most weakest part in a growing bone. And then lastly we have talked about epiphysis, the tip or ending of the bone. And this is that epiphysis fuses with the metaphysis at the adult age, maybe. And then females, the epiphysis fuses with the metaphysis 1 to 2 years before the male. That is why the females having tendency to having a lower height as compared to males, due to this 1 to 2 years earlier fusion of epiphysis and metaphysis. Then we have discussed about some bone structures. We have talked about periosteum. What is periosteum? This is the fibrous connective tissue underlying the bone, which protects the outer part of the bone. It attaches with the bone with a fiber called Sharpey's fiber, and it is an osteogenic in nature. If there is a fracture at the outer side of the bone, normally minor fracture, then due to the osteogenic capability property of the periosteum, it will repair itself. We don't need to intervene surgically or any kind of medical intervention needed. Then periosteum, it play a role of nutrient supply to the blood, to the bone. Why? Because it is having neurovascular, all the nerves and blood vessels, they are present in the periosteum only. Then we have talked about endosteum. This is the internal part of the bone. It is also osteogenic in nature, and it is present in, it carries the bone marrow cavity and the vascular canals. Then we have discussed in a little bit detail about periosteum and endosteum. This is the periosteum, outer part, and this is what endosteum, carrying the blood, the bone marrow cavity and vascular canals. This is the Sharpey's fibers, where we have neurovascular bundles. Okay, then we have discussed in detail within the bone marrow. We have this is what? Osteon. This is a structural basic unit of the bone, which are having the Haversian canal system, and which are having the lacunas and osteocytes also. This osteon is made up of lamellae. That lamellae are called concentric lamellae. Concentric lamellae, and we have circumferential lamella. Circumferential lamella and concentric lamella are having an intermediate called interstitial lamellas. And in the osteon, okay, these are the blood supply. These blood supplies are this blood vessel are connected to each other with a canal called perforating canals. If we more magnify this osteon into this way, we have a lacunas over here, like this lacunas, which are having the osteocytes. Osteocytes are osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Osteoblasts, we have discussed, they are important in the intramedullary ossification. Osteoblasts are required for the bone formation, and osteoclasts helps in bone resolution. So these osteocytes and osteoblasts and osteoclasts, which are osteocytes, which are present at this place, it is called lacuna, and these lacuna are joined together with each other, having a connection called canaliculus, and two canaliculus are called canaliculi. Можно два минуты. Okay, so that was about internal structure of the bone. Okay, then come here. We have talked about forms of the bone. There are two forms of the bone: compact bone and spongy bone. Compact bone are hard, strong, and spongy bones are soft, which are having sponge-like structure, trabeculi. And there is another type of spongy bone called cancellous bones. Cancellous bones are present at the core of the vertebra and are present at the articular surface of the long bones. Okay, there is no fun in telling that compact bones are outer and spongy bones are inner. Then we have discussed about some blood supply of the bone. First of all, we have talked about nutrient artery, which enters into the bone marrow and passing through a metaphysis, which is a part of bone marrow, long bones. Through metaphysis, we have nutrient foraminas in the metaphysis. Through this nutrient foramina, nutrient artery will pass and it gives the blood supply to the bone marrow and wherever it is needed. Secondly, we have talked about periosteal arteries, which gives the outer 1/3 of the cortex blood supply. Then thirdly, we have metaphyseal system, which gives the blood supply to the bone through a neighboring cells. So these three characteristic features are very unique and peculiar for the long bones. Then we have periodontal ligaments, which gives the blood supply to the cementum, which is an avascular part present in the teeth, root canal, mostly in the roots of the tooth. Then there are some other blood arteries like mucoperiosteal arteries in the flat bones and fine periosteal arteries in the short bones, the irregular bones, and the rest of the bones. Then we have discussed about classification again in a nutshell. There are 6 types of classification of bones. First of all are long bones, the bones which are having length more than their width are called long bones. Maybe it's your humerus, radius, ulna, or metacarpals. Then second bones are short bones, which are cuboidal in shape, maybe your carpal bones or your tarsal bones. Thirdly, we have flat bones. Most common example is scapula. Scapula, it is a irregular bone, but it comes in a category of mostly in the flat bones. Then fourthly, we have irregular bones like hip bones or vertebra, and most importantly, ear ossicles, malis, incus, and stapes. Then fifth one, we have sesamoid bone. The bones are present within the tendon of any muscles to reduce the tension in the tendon and change the direction of pull of action. Number one example is patella, present in the tendon of quadriceps muscle. Pisiform bone is a type of sesamoid bone. Fibula, it is also sesamoid bone, present in the lateral head of the gastrocnemius muscle. And riders, these are the medial side of the femur. Then sixth one, we have pneumatic bones are having air sacs. It acts like an air condition. It decreases the weight of the bone present at the base of the skull. The examples are examples of pneumatic bones are sphenoid, ethmoid, maxilla, and mastoid. So that were the 6 classification of the bone. Then we have discussed about bone marrow. There are 2 types of bone marrow: red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. Okay, before that, bone marrow is about 4% of the body weight. Total body weight 4%. If the person is having 100 kg, then how many kilogram will be the bone marrow? 4. That will be better. So if we say if a person having 65 kg, it is 2.5 or 2.7. There is no need to be complicate yourself. If the person is having 100 kg weight, then 4 kg should be bone marrow, because 4% body weight is bone marrow. Then bone marrow is present in the cavities of the long bones and short bones, and bone marrow present in the interstices of the irregular and the flat bones. There are 2 types of bones: red bone marrow and yellow bone marrow. Red bone marrow is present by birth till the 7 years of age. Why it is red? Because it is making the blood hematopoiesis, and after the 7 years of age, rather than making the blood, it starts storing the fat. That's why red bone marrow converts into yellow bone marrow from distal to proximal end. Okay, till 7 years of age, all the bone marrow is red. From 7 years to, okay, you can say from 20 years or till adulthood, this red bone marrow converts into yellow bone marrow, coming from the way of conversion of red bone marrow into yellow bone marrow from distal to proximal end. From distal to proximal end, red bone marrow converts yellow bone marrow. And till puberty, or after, you can say now, right now, your skull bones are making blood. While the red bone marrow present in your skull bones, that red bone marrow present in your sternum and your vertebrae, and somewhere around your ribs also. And you can say the proximal head of the femur is also having red bone marrow. As we said that red bone marrow converts into yellow from distal to proximal. So the proximal side of the long bones still have red bone marrow cells. They are making the blood right now. So then we have discussed about some bone markings. First of all, we have talked about tuberosity. What is tuberosity? Large round elevation is called tuberosity. Tubular tuberosity we have talked about. What is tubercle? Small rounded eminence is called tubercle. What is groove? Elongated depression or a furrow. What is fossa? Shallow or deep area or depressive area. Then what is crest? This is the ridge of the bone. What is fovea? Small pit at the head of any bone. We have discussed about femur head. Then what is notch is indentation at the edge of the bone. Sternal notch I have shown you. Capitulum, this is the rounded head. So that was about some bone marking. Then there are some abnormalities. What are brachydactyles? Shortening of the length of the digits. Brachydactyle, syndactyle, fusion of 2 or more than 2 fingers together. Polydactyle, 6 or more than 6 fingers in one hand. Oligodactyly, 4 or less than 4 fingers in one hand. Ectrodactyl, absence of central fingers, central digits of hand or foot. So then at the end we have discussed about muscles, general anatomy muscles. Then smooth muscles, they are involuntary in nature, they are not under our control, controlled by autonomic nervous system and hormonal control. The most characteristic feature is peristalsis, the circular contraction of the muscles for the one-way flow of the bolus, and then it also helps in mixing of the digestive juices. Urinary bladder and uterus have a characteristic feature of expulsion of their content. Then it's a slow process, slow functions. Then we have talked about cardiac muscle present in your heart, myocardium. There are also involuntary mean not under your control. Having striations, they are work as a unit. All the ventricles will relax at a time and contract at a time. It works like a unit. It works in a rhythm and is controlled by autonomic system and hormones. And then we have discussed about skeletal muscles. These skeletal muscles are voluntary. Thank God, they are under our control. Okay, they are also striated muscles, and the functional unit of these skeletal muscles are motor unit, having 2 types: motor neurons and muscle fibers. There are 2 types of muscles: type 1 muscle fiber and type 2 muscle fiber. Type 1 muscle fibers are red. Type 2 muscle fibers are white. Type 1 muscle fibers are slow. Type 2 muscle fibers are fast. Type 1 muscle fibers have a high tendency of mitochondria. Type 2 muscle fibers have low numbers of mitochondria in their cells. Then we have discussed about some structure of the muscles. First of all, origin. This is the attachment of the muscle with the bone, which is least mobile. What is insertion? This is the attachment of muscle to the bone, which is highly mobile. And then we have belly, which is present within the origin and insertion. It is a contractile unit of the muscle, and it is having 60% motor and 40% sensory supply. And aponeurosis, what is aponeurosis? This is the flat fibrous tissue or extended broad tendon. It serves as an insertion or a origin. Then we have talked about raphe. This is the line of union of straight structures like scrotal raphe, pterygomandibular raphe, or a pharyngeal raphe. Then we have talked about ligament. What is ligament? It's a fibrous band which connects 2 bones together, that are called ligament. Tendon, it is a fibrous band which connects bone to the muscle. The strongest tendon of the body is Achilles tendon. Then what is epimysium? This is the fibrous tissue that covers the muscle fiber. Then we have talked about some classification of the muscles. First of all, we have talked about unipinnate muscles. The muscle fiber, also the peniform muscles, or feather-like body of the muscle. Unipinnate muscle, extensor digitorum longus, it is an example of unipinnate muscles in which the muscle fibers are present obliquely to the line of action. Then we have bipinnate muscles. In bipinnate muscles, we have rectus abdominis muscle is an example, in which in unipinnate muscles, tendon is lies at one side of the muscle and muscle fibers are passing through it obliquely. Example is extensor digitorum longus muscle. Bipinnate muscles are in which the tendon lies at the center of the muscle and muscle fibers are cover these muscles both sides. Examples are rectus abdominis. Multipinnate muscles, the tendon lies at the center of bicep muscle and the muscle fibers are covering from all sides. Examples is deltoid muscle. Then another classification is fusiform muscles or spindle shaped muscle. Example is deltoid. Then flat muscles. Example is extensor oblique muscles. Then we have quadrate muscles like square shaped muscles. Example is rectus abdominis muscle. Then there is prime movers. The muscles which are having prime responsibility to do something. Okay, prime mover for the flexion of the hip joint, psoas muscle. Prime mover for the extension of the hip joint, quadratus muscle, or you can say the quadratus femoris muscle. And antagonist muscle, totally opposite. Okay, suppose if I say the prime mover of the flexion of the hip joint, that is psoas muscle, and prime muscle for the extension of the hip joint, quadratus femoris. If I say antagonist muscle for the flexion, that is quadriceps femoris, and antagonist muscle for the extension, that should be psoas muscle or iliacus muscle. Then we have another muscle called hybrid muscles or composite muscles, that muscle which are having two-way innervation of the nerves, like only simply one muscle get innervation from one nerve only. But if one muscle get innervation from two types of nerves, that muscle is called hybrid muscle or composite muscle. Examples are brachialis muscles. Medial side of the brachialis muscle gets innervation musculocutaneous nerve, and lateral side of the brachialis muscle gets innervation by the radial nerve. Then we have talked about the flexor carpial larynx muscle. Medial side of the flexor carpial larynx muscle gets innervation by the ulnar nerve, and lateral side of the flexor carpial larynx muscle gets innervation by the median nerve. Then we have talked about some fixators, the muscle which fixes the origin of any muscle. Then synergist muscle, the muscle which stabilizes the joints in order to give the stability for the proper functioning of the muscle. For example, stabilizes the wrist joint if I want to make a flexion at the interphalangeal and metacarpophalangeal joints. Then then there are some convergent muscles, examples are pectoralis muscles. Then last but not the least, we will talk about naming of the muscle according to their size, shape, position, attachment, depth, action, and head and belly. Size based naming, if the muscle is long, the name should be longissimus. If the muscle is broad, the name should be latissimus dorsi muscles. If the muscle is bigger, major, pectoralis major muscle. If the muscle is size is small, minor, pectoralis minor muscle. For example, for shape-based classification, if the shape is just like this triangular shape, deltoid muscle. There is a muscle over here. Here we give an intramuscular injection, deltoid muscle. Then if the muscle is circular in shape, teres muscle, teres major, teres minor muscle. Then if the muscle is straight, there should be rectus abdominis muscle. Okay, before I forget, pinnate muscles are those muscles which are having muscle fibers crossing obliquely to the line of action. And pinnate muscles are those which are having the oblique muscle fibers to the line of action. Due to that characteristic feature, they are having more power than movement. They have more power but less movement as compared to other muscles called sternocleidomastoid muscles, which are having the muscle fibers towards the line of action. Due to that activity, they are having less power but more action, more movement. Okay, come down. So according to the position, pectoral, if the muscle is present in the chest, there should be pectoralis major, pectoralis minor muscle. According, if the muscle is present in the arm, brachii, bicep brachii muscle. According to the attachment, if the muscle is attached to the sternum and clavicle and mastoid, sternocleidomastoid muscle. According to attachment, we have coracobrachialis. Starting from the coracoid process of the scapula, if I show you, from the coracoid process of the scapula to the brachium coracobrachialis, that is about attachment of the muscles. Then we have talked about depth. According to depth, the muscle is very deep inside the body, profunda brachii, profundus depth. If the muscle is superficial, simply superficial, externus or internus. Then according to the action, if the muscle is flexing the joint, that is flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpial larynx, flexor digitorium longus, flexor digitorium brevis, flexor pollicis brevis, flexor pollicis longus, flexor digiti minimi. If the muscle is doing the function called flexion, bending of joint, that should be flexor. If that muscle is helping in the extension or straightening of the joint, that is called extensor muscles. The same way, some muscles are constrictors and some muscles are dilator. Some muscles are named by according to the head. If the muscle is having two heads, that is called bicep. The muscle is having three heads, tricep. The muscle is having four heads. The muscle is having two bellies, digastric muscles. Then last but not the least, we have talked about some few terminologies, basics important. Smallest muscle of the body is stapedius muscle, present with the smallest bone of the body, that is stapes. Longest muscle of the body is sartorius muscle, present in your thigh region. Then locking muscle of the knee joint, that is quadriceps muscle. Unlocking muscle is popliteus, and key muscle for this locking and unlocking, that is piriformis muscle. Safety muscle of the tongue, that should be genioglossus muscle. Then safety muscle of the larynx should be posterior cricoid muscles. Then smiley muscles are zygomatic nature, and Greek muscle is pressor angulus oris. Grave muscle is depressor ankylorus, and smile muscle is zygomatic major, and boxer muscles are serratus anterior muscles. So that was about general anatomy of the muscles. Do you have any question, or is there anything I left to explain in this video? If I left something, let me know. I will explain right now.
Sir, kindly repeat their terms.
Which one? Deltoid.
Largest or smallest?
Smallest muscle of the body, that is stapedius muscle.
Yes.
In order to remember this,
All.
naming.
Yes.
According to this, for example, size-based classification. If the size is long, if the muscle is very long, that should be longismus.
Yes.
If the size is very large, latissimus, like the large muscle of the back, that should, what would be the name of that latissimus dorsi muscle? Back muscles? Okay, large latissimus muscle. If the muscle is big, major muscle, minor muscle. If the shape is just like triangular shape, it should be named as deltoid muscle. If the shape of the muscle is circular, that should be teres muscle, teres major, teres minor. If the shape of the muscle is straight, rectus muscle, rectus abdominis muscle. If the, then we have named the muscle according to the position. If the position of the muscle in the chest, that should be pectoralis, pectoralis major, pectoralis minor muscle. If the position of this muscle present in the arm, that should be named as brachii. You know, this is arm and forearm, brachii and antebrachii. According to the attachment, if the muscle is attached with the sternum and clavicle and ends at the mastoid process of the temporal bone, that should be named as sternocleidomastoid muscle. According to the attachment, if the muscle is attached with the coracoid process of the scapula and with the humerus, it should be called coracobrachialis. According to the attachment, then according to the depth, if the muscle is very deep inside, that should be profundus. If the muscle is superficial. If the muscle is outside the body, external. If inside the body, internal. Then according to the action, if the muscle helps in the flexion of the joint, that is called flexor carpi radialis, which flexor carpi radialis, flexor pollicis brevis, flexor digitorum, flexor carpi radialis are known as. If the muscle is helping in the extensor of the joint or straightening of the joint, that should be named as extensors. If the muscle is constricting something that is constricting, the muscles are dilating something, dilator muscles according to the action. And last but not the least, head and belly based classification. If the muscle is having two bellies, biceps, bi mean two heads, two heads, biceps. If the muscles have three heads, three means triceps. If the muscle is having four heads, four means quadriceps. If the muscle is having two bellies, it should be called digastric. Gastric means bellies. So that was about today's class. Do you have any question?
No, sir.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay, let's finish the class.